Ladies and gentlemen, there's a reason why some people feel stuck, unfulfilled, or constantly overwhelmed. And it has nothing to do with the world around them. It's not their job. It's not their past. It's not other people. It's the silent habits. They've normalized habits that seem small habits that go unnoticed, habits that feel harmless. Until they're not. Today, I want to talk about 5 toxic habits that might be quietly sabotaging your life, and most people don't even realize they're doing them. We don't even realize when it starts. We're scrolling through social media, flipping through images of people smiling, traveling, succeeding, looking flawless, and somewhere deep in our minds, a quiet voice says, "Why am I not there yet?" That's how it begins. Subtle comparison, a seed of self-doubt. And the problem is we do this every single day. Dozens of times we compare our bodies, our careers, our relationships, even our happiness, not to our own standards, but to a carefully curated snapshot of someone else's highlight reel. The trap of constant comparison is that it feels innocent. We think it motivates us. We believe it's pushing us to do more, be better, but in reality, it's doing the opposite. It's draining our energy. It's stealing our joy. It's making us feel like we're always behind, like we're never enough, because comparison doesn't drive excellence. It drives insecurity. And when you live in a state of constant comparison, you are measuring your value based on someone else's timeline, someone else's achievements, someone else's life that you don't fully understand. Here's the truth: people only show what they want you to see. You see the vacation, not the debt. You see the promotion, not the burnout. You see the wedding photos, not the lonely nights. You don't know the full story, but you're comparing it to every chapter of yours. That's not fair to you. It's like judging your life through a mirror that only reflects someone else's best days. And over time, this habit becomes internalized. You start doubting your decisions. You question your path. You stop celebrating your wins because they don't seem big enough compared to someone else's. You become so focused on what you lack that you lose sight of what you have. You start to believe that your progress isn't real unless it matches or outpaces someone else's. That is a dangerous mindset because it means your peace, your self-worth, your happiness, they're no longer in your hands. They're held hostage by the illusion of someone else's success. So how do you break free? You change the question. Instead of asking, "Why am I not there yet?" ask, "Where am I now compared to who I used to be?" That's the only fair comparison. Who were you 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago? What have you overcome? What have you learned? What have you built quietly in the background of your own life? Real growth is not loud. It doesn't always look glamorous, but it's happening every time you make a decision to show up when you don't feel like it, every time you do the right thing, when no one is watching, every time you choose progress over perfection. That's what matters, your own timeline. Your journey is not meant to look like anyone else's. Some people peak early, others bloom later, some rise fast and burn out, others grow slow and steady. You're not falling behind, you're just on your own path. Comparison tells you to rush, growth tells you to trust. When you begin to trust your own pace, when you begin to honor your own story, something powerful happens. You stop chasing validation and you start living with purpose. So the next time you find yourself scrolling, watching, comparing, pause, breathe, remind yourself their story is not my story. You are not here to compete. You are here to grow, to become, to evolve into the person you were meant to be. Not faster, not louder, not bigger than anyone else, just better than who you were yesterday. That is the only comparison worth making. We're taught from a young age to be polite, agreeable, and helpful. We're taught that saying yes makes us kind, likable, and easy to be around. And so over time, many of us become experts at saying yes, even when everything inside us is screaming no. We agree to things we don't want to do. We stretch ourselves thin, put other people's needs above our own, not out of generosity, but out of fear. Fear of disappointing someone, fear of seeming selfish, fear of conflict, fear of being misunderstood or left out. Here's the reality: every time you say yes to something that goes against your values, your priorities, or your well-being, you are saying no to yourself. And while that may not time, it chips away at your self-respect. It slowly teaches you that your own boundaries don't matter. It teaches you to be available to everyone, but yourself. This habit often comes from a good place. You want to help, you want to support your team, your friends, your family. You want to be dependable, but there's a fine line between being helpful and being a people pleaser. And once you cross that line, saying yes stops being an act of kindness, becomes a survival tactic, a way to manage other people's emotions, while ignoring your own. The cost of this is subtle, but serious. You start to feel resentful, you start feeling overwhelmed, overcommitted, and underappreciated. You lose time for what really matters to you. Your goals, your rest, your passions, they all get pushed aside to make room for obligations you never wanted in the first place. And then you wonder why you're exhausted, why you're burned out, why you feel stuck in a life that doesn't feel like your own. The truth is saying no doesn't make you rude or cold or selfish. It makes you honest. It makes you clear. It makes you someone who respects their time and energy. And when you start showing up for yourself that way, something shifts. You begin to build trust, not with others, but with yourself. You start to believe in your right to protect your space. You begin to understand that you are not here to live according to someone else's expectations. Of course, saying no isn't always easy, especially if you've built a reputation around being the go-to person, the one who always says yes at first. People might push back, they might question you, they might guilt you, but that's not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that you're changing the rules of a game. They've gotten comfortable playing. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to your time. You don't have to explain or justify every boundary you set. No is a complete sentence. And when you say it with kindness and confidence, it earns you respect. More importantly, it gives you freedom. Freedom to choose what aligns with your values, what energizes you, what contributes to your purpose. It's not about saying no to everything. It's about saying yes to what truly matters. It's about being intentional when your yes comes from a place of honesty, not obligation. Becomes powerful, becomes a choice, not a compromise. So the next time you feel that tension, that moment where your mouth wants to say yes, but your heart wants to say no, pause, listen, ask yourself, if I say yes to them, am I saying no to me? And if the answer is yes, you already know what to do. Choose yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Because when you respect your own boundaries, you invite others to do the same. And that is where real connection, trust, and alignment begin. We live in a world that rewards distraction, constant notifications, endless content, busy schedules. It's never been easier to avoid ourselves. And that's exactly what many of us are doing, avoiding. We fill every moment with noise. We scroll when we're bored, binge watch when we're stressed, check emails when we're anxious, and keep our calendars packed so we never have to sit still. On the surface, it looks like productivity or entertainment, but underneath, it's often something deeper, an escape from discomfort, uncertainty, or pain. Distractions become our coping mechanism. We use them to numb emotions. We don't want to feel loneliness, sadness, insecurity, fear. Instead of facing those emotions head on, we drown them in constant stimulation. We don't allow ourselves time to process. We don't give space for healing. We just keep moving, keep consuming, keep running. And here's the thing, what we avoid doesn't disappear. It lingers, it builds up, and eventually it shows up in other areas of our lives. We start to feel disconnected from ourselves, from others, from the present moment. We struggle to focus, to create, to feel fulfilled, not because we're incapable, but because our minds are constantly pulled in 10 different directions. And what's worse, we don't even realize we're doing it because distraction feels harmless. Normal. Necessary problem is that when you numb the bad, you also numb the good. You can't selectively shut down emotions. If you avoid pain, you also avoid joy. If you suppress discomfort, you limit your capacity to feel alive. We think we're protecting ourselves, but really we're cutting ourselves off from the full experience of being human. Emotions, even the hard ones, are not the enemy. They are messengers. They are signals, and when we ignore them, we miss important information about what's happening inside us. Being busy doesn't always mean we're growing. Sometimes it just means we're avoiding and real growth. Real clarity comes from presence, from slowing down, from sitting with what is even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable, because that's where the truth lives. That, of course, this isn't easy. Stillness is hard when you're used to constant motion. Silence can feel unbearable when you're used to noise. But that discomfort is not a problem. It's an invitation to reconnect with yourself, to listen to what your mind and body have been trying to tell you, to stop running and start reflecting. You don't have to give up your phone or move to a cabin, the woods, but you do need to create space, even just a few minutes a day. Moments where you're not consuming anything, moments where you're just breathing, thinking, feeling, because in that space, you begin to notice what's really going on. You start to differentiate between distraction and desire, between what you truly want and what you're using to cope. Ask yourself, what am I avoiding? What am I afraid to feel, to face, to admit? The answers might be uncomfortable, but they are the beginning of healing. And healing doesn't happen through distraction. It happens through presence. So next time you reach for your phone out of habit, pause, ask yourself if you're using it to connect or to escape. And if it's the latter, give yourself permission to do something. different to sit with the feeling instead of running from it, to write, to breathe, to walk, to simply be, because the most powerful breakthroughs don't happen when we're distracted. They happen when we're honest, when we're still, when we choose to stop numbing and start listening. The most important conversation you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. Yet for many of us, that conversation is filled with criticism, doubt, and harsh judgment. We say things to ourselves. We would never say to another person, "You're not good enough. You always mess things up. You'll never make it." And we say it so often. It starts to feel normal, like this inner voice is just telling us the truth. It's not. It's reinforcing a belief system that quietly shapes how we see ourselves and what we believe we're capable of. Negative self-talk is one of the most damaging habits we can fall into, because it doesn't just stay in our heads, it influences our actions. If you constantly tell yourself you're not smart enough, you'll hesitate to speak up. If you believe you're not worthy of love, you'll sabotage relationships. If you repeat the story that you always fail, you'll stop trying before you even begin. Over time, words become your identity. You're not just thinking you're not enough, you believe it. The danger is how automatic it becomes. It doesn't always come in the form of full sentences. Sometimes it's just a sigh, a quiet dismissal of your own effort. You brush off your accomplishments, you downplay your strengths, you focus only on the flaws, the mistakes, the areas where you don't measure up, and without realizing it, you create an internal environment where your potential is constantly being suffocated by your own thoughts. This kind of self-talk is often rooted in old wounds. Maybe someone made you feel small once, a parent, a teacher, a bully, and that voice stayed with you. Maybe you internalized failure as a reflection of your worth instead of just a part of the process. Or maybe you've been comparing yourself for so long that you can no longer see your value clearly. Whatever the reason, it's not your fault that voice exists, but it is your responsibility to challenge it. Because the truth is, you are not your thoughts, especially not the ones rooted in fear or shame. You are not mistakes you've made. You are not the voice that tells you to shrink. You are not broken. You are becoming requires compassion. Becoming requires patience. Becoming requires that you treat yourself like someone worth fighting for. So, how do you begin to change that voice? You start by noticing it. Awareness is the first step. Start paying attention to your inner dialogue. Catch the moments where you criticize yourself. Don't judge yourself for it. Just observe and then ask, would I say this to someone I care about? The answer is no. It doesn't belong in your mind. Then replace it slowly, gently. Instead of "I always fail," try "I'm still learning." Instead of "I'm not good enough," try "I'm doing my best, and that's enough for today." These small shifts might not feel powerful at first, but over time they begin to rewrite the story. And when your inner voice becomes more supportive, you start to see yourself differently. You take more risks. You bounce back faster. This isn't about toxic positivity. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about being honest, but kind. It's about speaking to yourself the way you would to a friend, with truth. Yes, but also with encouragement, because no one thrives under constant criticism, not even from themselves. The way you speak to yourself sets the tone for your life. Make it one of belief, not doubt. Make it one of hope, not fear. Because when you change the voice in your head, you change the direction of your life one word at a time. It's easy to point fingers, to blame the circumstances, to say "it's not my fault," or "if only they had done their part." Avoid responsibility often feels like self-protection, like a shield against failure, judgment, or pain. But what it actually does is trap us. It keeps us stuck in the same patterns, the same complaints, the same outcomes. When you refuse to take ownership of your life, you give your power away. You become a passenger instead of the driver. You wait for someone else to change before you do, and in doing so, you quietly surrender control over your future. This isn't about blaming yourself for everything that goes wrong. Life is complex. There are real setbacks, real injustices, challenges that are beyond your control. But there's a difference between what happens to you and how you respond to it. Responsibility isn't about taking blame. It's about taking ownership. It's about saying, "This may not be my fault, but it is my move." That shift in mindset is what separates those who grow from those who stay stuck. Avoiding responsibility can take many forms. It can look like procrastination, putting things off and telling yourself you'll get serious someday. It can look like defensiveness, shutting down any feedback that challenges your current behavior. It can look like perfectionism, waiting until everything is right before you act so you never risk failing. It can even look like constant busyness, filling your schedule so full that you never have time to reflect or make meaningful progress. But underneath all of it is fear. Fear of failing, fear of being seen, fear of add together. The irony is the more you avoid taking responsibility, the more powerless you feel, the easier it is to keep avoiding it. Becomes a loop, one that quietly destroys confidence, drive, and momentum. Taking responsibility, on the other hand, is uncome fear. Facing the truth about your habits, your decisions, your results. It means asking yourself hard questions. What role did I play in this? What can I learn from this? What can I do differently going forward? These questions don't always have easy answers, but they unlock something essential. Growth. Because once you take ownership, you're no longer at the mercy of your circumstances. You don't have to wait for better conditions, more support, or perfect timing. You get to take action now. As imperfect as it may be, you begin to realize that your future is not something that just happens to you. It's something you create one decision at a time. This mindset builds resilience, it builds grit, it builds trust in yourself, not because you always get it right, but because you're willing to keep showing up and doing the work. And that is where confidence comes from, not from perfection, but from ownership. So if you find yourself avoiding a hard conversation, delaying a decision, or blaming someone else for your lack of progress, pause, ask yourself, what am I avoiding by not owning this? What could shift if I did? You might be surprised by the answer, often the very thing we fear. Taking responsibility for is the thing that will set us free. Responsibility is not a burden, it's a privilege. It means you are not helpless, you're not stuck, you're not waiting for permission, you are claiming your power quietly, consistently, and with intention, and that changes everything, because when you start taking responsibility for your life, your goals, your growth, you stop waiting for change, and you become